Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. For those who are in the live Zoom audience, you know the deal. Introduce yourselves in the chat. Name what city you're coming for or calling in from, and we'll get started in 1 second. Just give me a second. My computer seems to be frozen. Okay, give me 1 second. It should. Hold on. Give me 1 second. My computer is frozen right now. Okay. Super. Okay. I think we are back online. Okay, awesome. I always get rusty after these calls. I think it's been a month. I know a month is not a long time, but getting back into the swing of things. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's microlearning. And the topic is get out of your comfort zone with my dear friend, Greg Delson. This is going to be really fun. So whether you're watching this on the live Zoom audience or you're watching this via live stream on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Meta, we want you in the conversation. So please engage in the comments in the chat. Introduce yourselves. If you're watching this via the live stream on one of the platforms, please introduce yourselves as well. This is a conversation rather than a webinar. If you have a book recommendation, if you have a quote that you really enjoy or something Greg says really resonates with you, let us know in the comment and the chat wherever you're watching this from. For those who are new to Community of 7, these micro-learnings are free, global, and free for I think our goal is really to democratize learning development and leadership development and training. And our goal is to help our listeners elevate their mindset and skill set by bringing in leading authors, executive coaches, executives, founders, and subject matter experts. So for those who are in the live Zoom audience, if you don't mind, if you can turn on your videos, because we want to see your beautiful smiling faces. I know for me as a speaker, and I'll speak for Greg as well, it's so helpful to see your expressions and just see you interacting with us. And for those who are kind of watching this via live stream, once again, we want you active in the comments and the chat. So we always start our calls, for those who are regulars and who know the deal, with a quick, quiz or so. So in your top right-hand side, if you're on the live Zoom audience, go to gallery mode and put this on gallery mode. And we are going to do a quick quiz, and I'm going to ask you a series of questions. If you are if the answer is yes, put both hands up like this. If it's no, then just leave your hands down. If you're watching this via live stream, then type in yes or no to the answer in the comments. Got it? Okay. So first question, have you ever tried a new skill or activity outside of your expertise? Okay. Have you set a goal recently that pushes you beyond your comfort zone? Have you ever regretted not taking a risk? I think all of us said yes to that. Have you ever done something that scared you but ended up being rewarding? Okay. Do you find it easier to step out of your comfort zone when you're doing it with other people, like friends or coworkers? Have you ever said yes to an opportunity that you initially wanted to decline? Last question. Do you feel your comfort zone has expanded over the past years? Yes or no? Okay, awesome. So if you're in the live Zoom audience, go into view and then put this in speaker mode so you should just see me. Hi, everyone. It was so funny as I was answering those questions because I realized that these past 4 or 5 years since I left corporate and started Community of 7, every day is so freaking uncomfortable. And I've had to get out of my comfort zone daily, maybe several times a day. And it's funny because I realize that I'm a person that has always hated change, hated taking risk. The fact that I'm doing what I'm doing now, if you had told me 10 years ago, I would say you were insane. There's no way I would be public speaking. There's no way I would have started my own business while trying to raise a family. None of this was like in my wheelhouse. Like I could not have imagined any of this. Um, and I think especially these past few years, I just had actually this morning breakfast with a friend, Leslie, if you're watching this, hi. And she's kind of going through that same path of self-discovery. She's just kind of discovering her next steps. And it really made me think about what I was going to talk about today. And before we start, though, another quiz, if you guys can guess and put it in the chat. And, as we talk about getting past your comfort zone, what do you think my biggest fear was for decades? Let me know in the chat if you can guess what it was. Was it public speaking? Was it fear of failure? Public speaking, I see a lot of that, right? My biggest fear for probably almost my entire life was karaoke. Serious. I mean, and I know that sounds trivial, but as an Asian American, not being able to karaoke, I was excluded from so many family events, right? Because karaoke is part of like Asian American culture. Like, someone graduates from college, you got karaoke. Someone has a birthday, there's karaoke. And the thought of singing in public was it scared me. Donna says you need to have a few sips of wine before karaoke. True, but the thing is, I don't drink. So I think that was my issue. So I'm going to tie it back to this conversation, I promise you. So, like last, kind of talking about going out of your comfort zone. Last year, I was in Vail about July or so because I had I guess, gotten nominated to be part of this group of amazing transformation leaders called Transformation Leadership Council. And I felt so uncomfortable as an introvert because I knew no one there because the person who nominated me um, um, was not in attendance. And so I literally went to this event where I knew no one, and it was all of these leading authors, transformation coaches, etc. And I felt like I did not belong in that scenario because I was like, who am I, right? And everyone kind of did a quick introduction, and Greg stands up, and he introduced himself, and the first thing I thought was, God, this guy is so amazing. He was so charismatic, energetic. He kind of talked about what he did and his experience. And then he talked about what he did. And what he said was that everyone is a singer, and I help people find their voice. And I was like, I need to meet this guy. I don't know who he is, but I ended up finding him after he introduced himself, and I was like, my biggest fear was singing in public, right? And I don't know where the origins was. And he was like, you're a singer, everyone's a singer. But like on reflection, I realized that my fear of failure with karaoke was that I wasn't comfortable at it, and I was afraid of looking stupid, which is stupid when you think about it, because the whole point of karaoke is not to be able to sing. It's about being able to have fun, being able to laugh, being able to be in community. And I was so stuck in my head about being perfect or being good at something that because I wasn't a natural born singer, it scared me so much. And it was in this process of, I think, in the past few years where I was like, I think there was a correlation between me learning how to love myself the way I am, imperfect singing voice and all, and being able to karaoke in public, that I started to find my voice in other ways, right? Because stepping out of your comfort zone is really where the magic happens. And I didn't realize that, right? The goal in life isn't to be perfect, it's to progress. It's to have fun. It's to make friends along the way. Um, and it's really where courage lives, right? It's never in your comfort zone. It's in your growth zone. Um, and here we all love the idea of growth, um, of becoming the best versions of ourselves. But let's really be real. Growth is uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels shitty. It's definitely scary. And it requires us to really sit with the fear, for us to sit with failure and vulnerability. And here's the most important lesson I've learned in the past 5 years since starting Community of Seven. You are never going to feel ready. Never. Because this comfort zone doesn't, the comfort zone may feel safe, but it's not where we grow. It's not where we thrive. It's really where we stagnate when we just stay in our lane, right? So whether it's starting something new or speaking up when it's hard or, asking that person out, right? The moment you take that first step, you're not just expanding your limits, but you're proving to yourself that you're capable of more. And the best things in life don't happen when you're comfortable. They happen when you push yourself despite the discomfort, and trust that whatever is waiting for you on the other side of that risk is worth it. So lean in, take that leap. Growth is just outside the edge of what feels familiar. And that's why I'm so excited to be talking about getting out of your comfort zone with Greg today. He's since become one of my dearest friends, and I'm so excited for you to meet him all. Before I introduce himself, in the chat or comment, whether you're watching this via live stream or you're in the live Zoom audience, answer this question. Why do people get stuck in the comfort zone? Maybe the question is, why do you get stuck in the comfort zone? And let me know in the chat. Press send. Just press send in the comment. Fear of failing. Okay, it feels safe. It does, right? It takes less energy. That's good. I didn't really think of that, but that's so true. It's easier, right? It's more comfortable, right? To be in our own, to kind of go with the status quo. And I know that that's for me, and that's my case as well. So I'm going to bring in Greg right now, and let me add the spotlight with him. So I'm so excited to introduce my dear friend, Greg Delson. He's a founder and head instructor of Landlights, the Center for Voice in Los Angeles. He has over 2 decades of experience in performing, researching, mastering, and teaching vocals. He earned his BA in music at UC Berkeley. He's completed a Master's of Music and Music Education from BU, Boston University. He obtained a 3-year singing teacher's diploma from the Complete Vocal Institute in Copenhagen, Denmark. He's an advocate for the philosophy that singing is not a talent, it's a skill. And he emphasizes the coaching practice that anyone can learn to sing. He's a teacher of diverse range of students, from Grammy Award winners to beginners. Once again, I mentioned earlier, he founded the Landlights Community Choir in Los Angeles. It is the largest community choir program in the US. I actually went to one of the performances last time I was in LA, and I was awestruck. It was so powerful, and I'll have him talk about it in a second, but it was such an amazing experience. He's actively involved in the researching of psychological and physiological benefits of singing, group singing, and music performance. And he performs as a singer, songwriter, and musician, with his music available on various live streaming platforms. So drum roll, please. Greg, hey, welcome, friend.
Hi, so nice to be here.
I know, I'm so excited to see you. So, gosh, can you tell us a little bit about Landlights and what you do? Because it's hard for me to describe. I went to your performance recently in LA, and you had basically assembled these group of singers who they weren't professional. Some of them were singing for their first time, but there was maybe it's like 50 or people or so on stage, and it
Uh,
was such a powerful, moving experience. Tell us. about Landlights and what you do.
Yeah, the concert you went to, we had over 100 singers on stage, and they were a total mix of people from all over LA.
Yeah.
We have over 200 people in our program now, and this next season we have 4 choirs that are being launched all over LA because it's growing, which is great. That's my whole mission, is to get people singing. 7 years ago, I was asked to create a choir because I've been vocal coaching and doing workshops for years. Someone said, could we do an actual choir? And I said, absolutely not, because I had such bad memories and experiences of choir that I said, I'm not doing that to anyone else. And then I thought for a second, wait a minute, why does it have to be the way that I had experienced it? Could I create something that I would love to do that's reclaiming singing and in a joyful way? And so I just made all these rules where anyone could join. There's no auditions. Like, even if you cannot, quote unquote, hold a tune, you're welcome. And it's all just about the doing, the activity, the trying. It's like a growth mindset choir. And because of that, we have a lot of fun. And as you saw, we have fun concerts. It sounds good, right? Even with all that being said, it winds up sounding good. And the best part of it is I just see people coming out of their shells. And that's what, after the first season, made me want to continue doing it, is all the people coming up to me and saying, I wouldn't even sing in the shower. And now here I am on a stage. And there's something very empowering about doing something that's maybe a little scary, and not only realizing that you can do it, but realizing that you love it. So that's been a joy.
And I know one of the other things that you do as well is that you do these kind of instant choirs for companies, right? Like, how does
Yeah.
that work? You actually go in to, I don't know, a tech startup or a Fortune 100 company, and people sing. That would have been, as an introvert, my worst nightmare. How do you how do you do this?
Yeah, so I actually get flown all over the country to turn a lot of company offsites, and even large organizations, when they have their conferences, they'll have me, instead of a keynote, they'll have me surprise turn everyone into a choir for an hour and a half. And my joke is, because we always keep it a surprise, and my joke is the doors have been locked because everyone wants to bolt as soon as they hear what we're doing. But I very quickly explain to them, no one will have to sing alone. And we don't just dive right into singing. There's like a whole, I warm them up through all these very, very comfortable, easy activities. And then we have a live band and we sing one song, and people by the end are always laughing and smiling and high-fiving. And that's the point. It's not, I tell them, we're not going to Carnegie Hall. We're not trying to win a Grammy here.
Yeah.
Let's have some fun. Let's see the people that you work with in a unique way. But more importantly, let's challenge ourselves to do that thing that's a little scary, but really there's no actual danger, right? There's no bear in the forest coming to attack us. It's just singing.
Yeah.
And my whole job, and this is where I think the point of today's conversation is understanding where people are so scared that they won't grow because they shut down, and where it's so easy and so comfortable that they're not growing at all, they're not challenging themselves. And what that's called is, there's actually an educational term. One of my masters was in music education, and Zev Vygotsky came up with this term called the zone of proximal development.
Mm.
It's used in education, but it's life. So what is the ZPD? It's that place where it's just beyond your ability to do it by yourself. Like, you wouldn't have had yourself do it,
Mhm.
but it's not so far that it's out of bounds or too hard. So my job as a facilitator is to keep people in that growth zone where it feels fun and accessible, but still pushes them a little bit. And I'm constantly telling people, where are you on a 1 to 10? Because you should be in like a 6 to 7 feeling of like a little bit of like, oh, this is a little hard.
So that's interesting that you actually expect a level of uncomfort. And you actually kind of like stated that you're going to feel this way in the beginning.
There's an incredible term that I love and I use it all the time. It's called comfortable discomfort.
Mhm.
That's where you want to be when you're growing. It should feel comfortable, meaning you're not in any real risk. You're not unsafe, but it's a little uncomfortable. And when you can get yourself there, that's where all the amazing gains are. Think about going to the gym. If I'm just lifting a 2 pound weight, like my muscles are not going to grow. But if you give me an 80 pound weight, I can't even lift it. So I want to find that weight where it's hard, but I can still lift the weight. And that balance is what we're talking about for growth, the ZPD. And what I love about the singing things I do is it's a very obvious, easy way to get people into that. And they can understand the metaphor. But really, you don't need to sing to get into the ZPD. You could do the ZPD for cold emailing people. You could do the ZPD for public speaking. There's so many different ways where you can find the version of it that you're ready for that feels like a challenge, but isn't so scary or so unknown to you that you don't even know how to start.
So when I asked the question of why most people don't go past their comfort zone, the it seemed like the unanimous answer was that it was fear, right? Fear of failure is one of the big things. So how do you kind of get past that? I mean, like, you want to be uncomfortable, but like this, I think there's also fear of failure, but also to add on to that is that fear of judgment. I don't want to look, for me, like, I don't want to look stupid. So like, I think about when I was younger, um, I would only be attracted to things that I was already good at.
Yeah.
Right? So academic, studying, I was cross country. But anything that took a risk, anything where I could possibly fail at or not look, be excellent at, I just didn't try. And looking back, like, I think about all the lost opportunities of things that maybe I could have been a great violinist or whatever it is, right? But I didn't go for it because I was afraid, right? And then now today, for most people, it's like maybe starting a business. Maybe it's asking your dream man or woman out or something like that because you're afraid of rejection. How do you get past that fear of rejection and failure?
Yeah, so I call it start now. It's like start with the little version of it that you think I could do that. So let's take the violin, right? Or let's take a language. Gosh, I'd really love to learn Japanese. I've been studying Japanese. And when I first thought of it, I thought, I'm never going to learn this. This language is so different than anything. And I got Duolingo and I played a little game where, it taught me 10 little things and I played the little game for 5 minutes. That is one little step that was super comfortable that put me on the path. That's the start now. It's like it put me on the path to learning Japanese. Am I fluent in Japanese? No. But did I start? Do I have an idea of what it involves and I can measure if I even enjoy it or not? And so then I can progress farther. I can buy a course. I can start taking a lesson. Any like miles before I actually speak to someone who's Japanese. You know what I mean? Like there's so many steps between that thing that you have as your goal. And I think people focus on that thing. They think, well, I don't want to do karaoke because that's my biggest fear. Okay, well, let's do a little game. Lan, what's a little step on the way to karaoke that you could do?
I started singing with my daughter, so that's kind of what helped. So I did karaoke with her, and she was at kindergarten at this time, and that kind of helped me like, oh, this is just fun. It's not about being a singer, it's about having fun with someone.
Exactly. So let's take this game one step further and imagine someone here, they're working at a job, maybe that they don't really love, and they have this idea of a business that they just think would be so great. Should they immediately quit their job and just start that business? No.
No.
What's the first? And because that for most people is too uncomfortable, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how am I
Well,
gonna
also you have mortgages and rent to pay,
exactly
so children to feed.
uncomfortable? Yeah,
Yeah.
very uncomfortable. So what's a first step that someone could do?
Maybe take out, watch videos, research,
Yeah.
right?
Tell a friend or their spouse their idea.
Yeah.
Start, and this is not my field, but I'm just brainstorming things that could put us on the path to
Hmm.
our goal. People get scared because they think of themselves doing the final result of their goal. And there's too much of a bridge between where they are now as a person and that person.
Hmm.
So I say, build the bridge, start taking little steps towards that thing. And it's not scary, and there's way less of a chance of hurtful failure because you're not leaping, you're kind of like scooting.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like I kind of want to bring it back to Landlights and what you do. Your approach with Landlights, and one of the things you say is that singing isn't a talent, it's a skill. So I think this kind of aligns with what we're talking about, getting out of your comfort zone. How do you encourage students to step beyond their perceived limitations and embrace the discomfort of learning something new?
Yeah. And this is where I think singing is such an amazing analogy is for hundreds of years, we just thought you were either born with the ability to sing or you weren't. It was just a trait, like a fixed characteristic.
Mhm.
And I studied in Denmark for 5 years at a vocal institute where they've been researching voice for decades now and completely disproven that. It is a skill. It's just learning to use your body like I would learn to use my body to do yoga. So, yes, some people naturally fall into that a little more easily, but everyone can learn. And that's why I'm 100% confident saying it's just a skill. If you can talk, you can sing. You don't know how yet, most people, but I also don't know how to do yoga poses. Could I never learn how to do them? Of course I could. So, understanding the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset is I have the capacity to really do anything that I'm physically capable of doing. But we need two other things. We need the desire, right? To your violin anecdote earlier, if you didn't have the desire also to want to learn to play violin, then you're never going to do it. But if I have the desire, and the next thing, I get a good teacher, a good coach, someone who has done this before, a course, a book, a one-on-one coach who knows what they're talking about and can teach me. And then the third thing is you got to do the work. So in singing, that's practice. And for business, that is doing the work, whatever that work is, right? So when you have those three things, any skill can be mastered. It's just a mathematical formula. And if you're finding you're not mastering a certain skill, you can ask yourself, which of these three things am I missing? You could have the best coach in the world, you could have the desire, but are you practicing? Are you doing the work? Or you have a great coach and you're doing the work, but you might want to stop and ask yourself if you're not progressing, like, do I really want this thing that I'm going for? So, which is why in my one-on-one coaching, people all the time say, oh, can you teach my daughter? Can you teach my son? I said, I don't work with kids because I work with adults because they can tell me for sure if they really want to do this. And there's great people who work with kids, but I only work one-on-one with adults because I want people to know that they want something, and then I will help them get there. But that desire has to be there.
I love that. So one, desire, having that kind of like really, this is funny because I'm kind of relating it to my book. My number one, the secret is what matters most to you, your why, right?
Yep.
So your desire. Two, find a good teacher, right? And that could be in a form of a coach, a book, YouTube, you know, class, a course.
Yep.
Three, do the work. My book, Do This Daily. So it's about doing
Yes.
things daily, right? And I'll add back to what you said earlier, which is it can seem overwhelming. focus on the small steps that you need to take and just keep on taking one small step each day. Um, and then also your mindset, right? Having a growth mindset that it's not like you are born to that people are born with talent. You have to kind of cultivate that skill through these daily actions and being uncomfortable and just kind of keep on doing it and persevering until we get better, right? Am I missing anything? Did I get that pretty?
Throw the word talent out of your head because it's not helpful. It makes people feel very like just fixed in what they can do or can't do. And I love to think of the world as just skills that you can choose to acquire or not.
I
How
love that mindset. I love that mind. It's funny because one of the things I've really been working at is, you know, I feel like, everyone feels their child is bright, but like I know my daughter is bright just from
yes.
talking to her. But like instead of saying, God, Morgan, you're so smart, I'm just like, I'm so glad that you really worked hard at that to figure that out. And just kind of trying to cultivate in her the fact that she can get better with time and effort, opposed to, God, you're just such an inherently smart person, right? And just really kind of focusing on the developing the skills part, opposed to you're just naturally a bright person. And I think it's definitely made a difference because I see in her just like when I ask her how the day went, she was just like, oh, I didn't get this, but I tried really hard and I figured it out. And like me as a parent hearing that, I think is very kind of powerful. And one of the things I realize is as we get older, we don't give ourselves that same latitude.
Yep.
Um, like when I was younger, it was actually a lot easier for me to start a business in my 20s than it was like in my 40s. I mean, part of it is more pressure. You might have a mortgage, you have a family, but like that failing that I think when you're younger, you're too, and I don't mean this as in dumb, but you're too dumb to realize the risk involved. And so you just jump, right? And then as you get older, you've been said, no, you can't do this, or you get indoctrinated by, what you watch on TV, and so the can't is more in your vocabulary, you know? And so starting something like a business or asking someone out or, asking for that promotion or that raise becomes a scarier thing than when you were younger. Like, how
Yeah.
do you cultivate that fearlessness, if that makes sense? Because I look at my daughter and she's fearless.
Yeah.
And
And
then as you get older, you start like
yep.
guessing yourself.
And I'm going to add to your can't that people hear, and I think even more toxic than can't is shouldn't.
Mm.
Um, I mean, even I, growing up, was told, "Oh, you shouldn't sing that song." Like what? So there's a lot of unhelpfulness out there, and our society, is a wonderful society, but there's things that happen where we get a little hammered down. And kids, right? If kids were afraid of failing, they would never start walking. They would never start talking. You watch a 2-year-old walking and it's like they fail 50% of the time. They're falling over and knocking into things and tumbling, but they just get right back up and they don't think I'm a bad walker. They no value judgment placed on it. They're just learning to walk. So I say if you could put a I'm learning to in front of anything you want to do, it gets rid of that value statement too. So it's not like I'm even moving away from I like saying say you're a singer if it helps you rewire your brain towards that identity. But I'm moving away from that actually towards just telling people to say, I enjoy singing. I'm learning to sing. I'm singing more often these days because then it's just an activity that you're doing and you don't have the weight of the identity if that's harmful, right? So I teach a big thing with a lot of my one-on-one clients that has nothing to do with vocal technique. I mean, we do definitely go into vocal technique, but one of the biggest things I teach is what I call uninhibitedness. I mean, that is a real word. You just don't hear it thrown around very often. but it's so important. And I define it as just starting to build the skill. Remember, it's a skill, the skill of learning to care less of what people think about you. And this in our culture is tough. Like this was my biggest thing. I mean, people see the me now and they're not seeing the me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, who would not go on a stage. I would not go on a stage. I would sweat. My throat would be like in a knot. And now I live on stages. That's all I do is be on stages. And I love when people are like, oh, you're just born for this. You just have the personality. I said, no, I'm not. Like, this is what you're seeing now is work. I have put work into being this person. This is not a natural thing. I love it and I've come to love it, but it was work. So the same things that I did for my uninhibitedness exercises is what I teach. And there's so many fun games. But essentially what you're trying to do is take that. I say we have like a bubble around us. And that bubble is your comfort, it's your safe zone. And uninhibitedness exercises, you gently start pushing that bubble a little wider and a little wider until things that might have popped your bubble no longer do. Let me give you an example. And this is one that you can do. It has nothing to do with singing. So for those of you who don't want to sing, this is a great one. And it's called I call it the grocery store exercise, but you could do it in any place where you're interacting with the public. And we all know we go to the grocery store and we put our stuff on the conveyor belt and the cashier is ringing it up. How many of us just like sometimes maybe we say hi, maybe there's a little acknowledgement, but that's it. And then we pay. And it feels, to me at least, it used to feel so awkward to do any more than that. Like I was encroaching on their space or something. So I created this challenge for myself where I had to first just looking them in the eye and saying hello was like almost too much for me. It was almost going to pop my bubble, but I did it. I said, hi. And they say, hi, and you realize the world didn't end. So my bubble's a little further out. And the next time you go, you maybe say, how are you today? Has it been busy? Just anything. And their reaction is not the point of this. So even if they go, I don't want to talk to you, which has never happened, by the way, it's not about that. It's about you getting out of your comfort zone. So now I'm at the point of my challenge, and then it gets longer. Then I comment on my food. I comment on the person like, oh, whatever, Ritz crackers, those are so good. And I'm just constantly making myself more uncomfortable. Now I'm at the point where I show up at the conveyor belt and whatever song is playing on the radio, I'm like, we built this city, I'm like, just like singing it and singing it to the person bagging. And my bubble is so far now. And you think, well, why, Greg? What is the point of this exercise? It has things like this, and I have a whole list of these exercises. Things like this have filtered through my whole life so that when I'm in business contexts, I'm not as awkward and nervous as I used to be. I just have this feeling of like, yeah, I'm going to be me and people can react however they want. It's kind of not as important, but I can be myself. And I'm constantly challenging myself and pushing that bubble out. So now my bubble, I say, is like the size of like Los Angeles because I don't get embarrassed very easily.
No, I mean, and can I tell you, when I was at TLC, I felt very kind of uncomfortable because I was in a new environment and I didn't know anyone. And you were one of the first people to make me feel welcomed, And so whatever you're doing, the fact that knowing that you were kind of at this place so I actually had social anxiety. So I did something very kind of similar to you, which is I started talking to strangers in public and then I kind of grew it from there. But to know that, because you're probably one of the most energetic, social, warm, welcoming person that I know. And the power in terms of the growth that you've had from where you were to where you're at now, the fact that you can sing to thousands of people and like that would be my worst nightmare. But I have a funny story that kind of aligns with that. So besides having social anxiety, I also had a fear of, public speaking. And we both do this for a living now and, travel throughout the world to do public speaking. The way I got out of that nervousness of public speaking was actually volunteering to read out loud to my daughter's kindergarten at that time. So that was 10 years, no, not 10, 7, 8 years ago. But like I really had to, and for me, that was so scary. But like when you are reading to kindergartens, you have to be animated. You have to kind of show your facial expressions. You have to get into the story. And so before that, I would like speak for in corporate settings, but I was very like robotic and I was maybe articulate, but I wasn't like engaged. And for me, I had to practice speaking with kindergarteners in order for me to get comfortable on stage, realizing that it is a performance,
Yep.
even when I'm speaking. And it's not just about being articulate, it's about getting people engaged with what you're saying, but also making them feel like they are part of the story, I guess. So I think that's really powerful. And that it started with these small little steps, right? I
100%.
think that is so powerful.
Oh
Um,
yeah. And I challenge everyone to go do that because what you're seeing is not the me that I was. Like it's not even remotely close. And I could see it so clearly in my head every step of that grocery challenge because I remember doing it because it just like I'd be like sweating just to look someone in the eyes.
yeah.
And then so to hear, your perception of me from the first time, like you wouldn't even recognize that other
No,
person.
I was like, who is this magical person who's just like, just it's so funny because I think Greg had joined this group a year prior, and I thought he was like a lifetime member or something because he literally knew everyone and he was giving everyone hugs. And I was like, who is this person? Because here's me, socially awkward, kind of just like,
Oh,
And he's
you did
like,
not come off that way, Lynn.
no, but that's how I felt.
I
I think we
know.
all we have all have these stories in our head that we are like
Yep.
socially awkward and that we are, you know what I mean? But a lot of that is a story in our heads. Okay, let's talk about the story in our heads because one of the things people said was that there was fear of failure, fear of being judged. How do you get past that fear of judgment and really, you know, jump into a performance or whatever you want to do? Talk more about.
There's so many different skills and ways into it. And I work because not everyone's gonna fit every person. But the best advice I was ever given, and I scream this from the hilltops whenever I have a chance, is 3 words that changed my life. It's no one cares. It sounds negative, but it's the most freeing thing that ever happened to me. Like once I realized everyone is just thinking about what am I going to have for dinner tonight? Did I get that thing done I was supposed to do? The fight that I just had with my loved one. People are selfish just by nature and not in a bad way, just they're self-focused. So the whatever you're doing, they may notice it, they may comment on it, but they don't actually care. And so for me, knowing that whatever I did, no one's really going to care, it helped me release that power that I was giving other people. Like for me, not to go do an experience that I was so excited to do because I was worried hypothetically that some strangers I don't even know might care and judge me. Why am I giving those anonymous people so much power? And so I'm like, take back my power. And I just say, let them judge me because really, they're probably not. And when I do the corporate instant choirs, I tell everyone, the person next to you is not listening to you. I can promise you they are not listening to you. So however nervous you are that your singing voice is going to be judged by the person next to you, they're not even listening. They're worried about what? Their own singing voice. So I'd say and the band, we have bands playing. I'm like, the band's playing so loud, no one could even hear you.
Yeah.
Just be free with it. Just be fun with it. and get into your body. The more, that's another big one. The more I get them moving and dancing, then they're not in their head. So whenever you feel like you're so in your head and the fear is taking over, get in your body. Do something to just move through it. I have people dancing around, and there's something magical about getting in our body that gets us out
Okay.
of our.
So this is kind of funny, Greg, but before any major talk where I have to go on stage, I actually do like 20 push-ups and like 20 jumping jacks. And it helps with my nerve. So there's actually science based on like, so when our heart rate like increases, you could either interpret that as fear or excitement.
Mm.
And so when you actually are exercising, your body is telling yourself, oh, your heart's beating because you just did physical activity. And so it regulates your nerves, right?
That's
So
great.
so just in reading some of the comments in the live Zoom audience, Donna says there's an expression I love, which is that what people think about me is none of your business. I love that one too, Donna. Anne says, I've learned it isn't a negative thing to care less. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen to that. So let's talk about balancing comfort and growth. Okay, I am a creature of habit. Um, so sometimes leaving my home, I'm a homebody, is like it's the last thing I want to do. I just want to stay home, read, do work, be in front of my computer. How do you balance the need for stability and comfort with the necessity of stepping out of your comfort zone and, you know, fostering continuous growth? Like, you know, both personally and maybe even within organizations. Why is it important and how do you even do it?
So I'm laughing because I took that to the extreme and I challenged myself. So for almost 2 years, I lived nomadically, where I just had a backpack, and every day I was going to challenge myself to grow, to see what new experiences lie ahead. Like I didn't even know where I'd be sleeping that night, most nights. And um, it was 2 of the best years of my entire life. I mean, I experienced so much. And after it was done, my nervous system was like, okay, that's a lot of growth, a lot of challenge that you just went through. So to me, every balance is overused, but I would say the opposite of balance, but with a similar outcome, is what's charming you, right? We get back to the why. Don't do things because you think you should grow and you should challenge yourself. I don't think that's helpful growth personally. I think want to and charm growth is what you want. So, for example, people say, Greg, you should do a children's choir. Now, I have no interest in doing a children's choir. And they say, but you should it and think about how good it would be for those kids to get that philosophy young and probably like a great business idea. And I say, yeah, all of those things are true. And it's not charming me. So I could go have a huge growth experience by leading a children's choir, but I don't want to. Now, here's another one. There's a mixer, a networking thing that I kind of want to go to. I want to see, but it's a little scary to me and I don't know anyone at it. And I kind of want to be home and just watch Netflix. But there's something really curious for me about this networking event. That's an example of I would encourage you to explore that and go put yourself in that growth zone, because there's something in it that's intriguing you and making you want to do it. So again, let's get rid of the should and let's go for the want to. And then, yeah, just a lot of people, I'm like, put one thing in your life that is in your growth zone. Like, let's start there, right? The steps we were talking. Let's just put one thing in if there's nothing right now. And if there's a few things that you're already doing, put something in a different field. So like if all of your growth right now is business, do an arts thing, do a cooking, something that has nothing to do with your wallet that you could still grow from, and vice versa. If all of your growth is from arts and activities, maybe do something that's a little career growth zone oriented.
I love that. So I'm gonna open it up to questions soon. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment or chat, or if you're on the live stream as well, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'll be checking that too. Um, in the meantime, if anyone has a question, use your emoticon. Otherwise, before we do that, you mentioned you have other, what is it, activities or whatnot. I've noticed that the people that attend this love doing activities, as long as it doesn't have to do with singing. Uh, what what are some of the things that we could practice, like a practical thing that we could do that will help us? You have that great analogy of pushing kind of like the boundaries or and just
Mhm.
taking one small step and going. What are some of the other things that we could do to kind of like go past our comfort zone?
Well, the number one thing is I'm not kidding. Go try that grocery challenge. See where you are. See where your current level of comfort is. And then ask yourself, what's one slight adjustment that I could do to raise the stakes a little bit next time?
Yeah.
So that's one. I really do say go do the grocery challenge. The
Yeah.
next thing is for anything that is a want or a curiosity in your life right now, whether it be violin or cooking or a new business, just write out what are three tiny little steps that you could do or explore right now just to see if that's even something that you would want to keep continuing pursuing, but get it out of the dream zone and put it into a action zone. Redo this daily. Maybe that's one of your things. And the third one, I will say, is another kind of uninhibitedness exercise that's really fun.
Hmm.
And you take, I call it the cereal box challenge, but you can take anything that has a paragraph of writing.
Yeah.
Usually on the back of the cereal box, it'll be like, our ancient grains come from a variety of, that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
And read it out loud. And then ask yourself on a 1 to 10, like, how uncomfortable did that make you feel? Most of you, like one being like not at all uncomfortable, and 10
Yeah.
being like, almost going to pass out.
Yeah.
Most of you will find a low number. And then I say, keep ratcheting up the stakes. So then
Mhm.
I say, do it with a British accent. And a lot of people are like afraid because they're like, I have a terrible British accent. The point of this is not to have a good British accent.
Yeah.
It's just to do the exercise. So, you're reading like, our ancient grains come from the finest of fields, like whatever it is. And immediately people turn bright red and they go from like a 2 up to a 7. But
Yeah.
some people are like, no, that was easy, it was fun. So then I say, do it in a monster voice. Our ancient grains, like, and then if that's too easy, sing it. Our ancient grains come from a field, and if that's too easy, dance and sing. And then once you've reached the limit of that, you need another person, I think, to raise the stakes. So find a positive person who's silly in your life and would understand what you're doing. Maybe they want to do it with you. And read it maybe with your British accent to that person. And you're always asking yourself, where am I on a 1 to 10? We're
Mhm.
aiming for 6, 7. And I'm telling you, this kind of stuff is just like, it's life changing. It seems so silly and small,
Yeah.
but there's no going back. I say, once the bubble's gone out a little bit, there's no going back. So now you're just living here, which is so much more, you get to see so much more world than when your bubble was here.
I mean, there's something powerful of living in the 6 or 7, right?
Yeah, for periods of time during the day,
Yeah.
not all day long, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because then that would be high stress.
Yeah. A little too much growth.
Yeah.
You want to also just let your body relax. But I think people have too much of the relax all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I see that a lot with kids these days, where there's like a fear of failure, right? And you know, one of the things I've really tried to instill in Morgan is that to not be afraid of like losing or to fail at something because that's part of learning. And I think it gets much harder to do as we get older. Um, but when you can get past that notion that you have to be the best at everything, there's something comforting about that. Like I love the fact that changing the paradigm from like I'm a singer or I'm a runner to I'm learning how to do this. Because it gives that latitude of you're in the process of becoming better, right? And
Yeah.
it's
And that's
helpful.
that little, and yeah, Jennifer said it too. It's like, I'm learning to. If we can just put that in front of if we're about to say, oh, I'm so bad at, throw that out.
Yes. And yeah, that's me.
Learning to. Or I've chosen not to learn to. It's like, but take bad and good out of the equation. It's either like you're learning to do something or you're not.
That is just really powerful what you just said. Taking the whole notion of either being good at bad at something and I'm just learning, and it's about the continual improvement. There's something powerful about what you just said that like really kind of hit me. um
Yeah. And realize that the answer could be no. Like,
yeah,
I'm not learning to do yoga. Like, I don't say, oh, I'm bad at yoga. I'm
yeah.
just like, that's not something I've chosen to learn to do. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I'm not a yogi. Um, I love what my good friend Josh, and I need to introduce you both because Josh is one of my favorite people as well. Josh says, I love finding ways to live outside the binary. So often the gray is where we learn the most. That is so beautiful. I love that. Well,
yeah.
Josh, since you're on the line, do you have any questions for Greg? Because I'm going to introduce you after this because you guys should connect. So Josh is an amazing instructor. He has his own company, Saterman Connect, and they do a lot of leadership development training. Um, Josh, I know you started your kind of business a few years ago. You were at Macy's, a high executive in HR, and then you took that leap. I'm calling you out. I'm going to put you out of the
Oh,
company,
I love it.
put you in the spotlight. So, Josh, do you have any questions for Greg or comments or anything?
I find myself asking leaders often, what's the one thing that you wish you could go back and tell yourself that you learned in today's moment that you would do slightly differently? So if you were leaving the audience with one thing that you've learned that you would do differently, what would that one thing be?
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that. I'm so glad I chose you. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
I would go back and, well, I would give myself my own advice to just remember that you're learning and things don't need to be perfect to try it. Like, you don't have, it's crazy to think, like, but so many of us think that we need to be masters before we ever do the thing. Like, first I need to be an expert at it, then I'll do it in front of people. It's like, that's gonna just steal so much joy out of your life because there is no end zone. Like, people say to me, oh my God, Greg, your voice, like, it's so, and I'm like, I'm still learning how to do it. There's no, oh, I've made it. The joy is in the learning. It's like, I still learn new things for my voice and for all this other stuff that I teach. I've not arrived. Like, as a teacher, that would be terrible. Like, oh yeah, I'm done. I've mastered it. Now I'm just going to teach. It's like, I'm still teaching and learning constantly. So I wish when I was younger, I had shaken myself and known this, that someone would have said, just do the thing. Because I also wasted a lot of time with certain things that I was, oh no, I don't know. Yeah, just do it. So that's a
I
great
love,
question. Thank you, Josh.
I love that. So, kind of as we end, I think the big piece of advice is just do it. The art is just kind of learning, right? And growing from the process. And I think having fun too,
Yeah, that is the fun.
right? Just do it. So, as we close up, Greg, how can everyone find you, your website, LinkedIn? Just tell us anything that's coming up that we should know of. Like, how can this community support you?
Thank you. Well, I hope people continue this conversation. I'm on Instagram as at Greg Delson. My Landlights choir and voice organization is just at Landlights Choir. Landlights.com is where you could find out more. And if you know anyone in the LA area, we're open for registration right now on our spring 2025 community choir season, and it is a lot of fun. And we have these big charity pop-up sings that are one-day events as well. So I would encourage people to get on the mailing list. And yeah, find me on LinkedIn, connect with me. I'd love to continue the conversation.
Yeah, and so and also if you're a corporation or company that needs
Oh, yeah.
amazing like trainer kind of leadership development activity, it is such a powerful experience. So everyone knows the deal. This is the one time in the live Zoom audience I ask you to turn on your videos, go into gallery mode, turn on your videos, unmute yourself, please, please, if you're in the live Zoom audience. And we're going to give Greg a big round of applause. Woo! Thank you so much, Greg. Google, like, add him on Instagram. If you can find one of the choirs in LA, it's so amazing. It is such a life-changing experience. I was just in the audience and it was amazing. But thank you so everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Have a happy New Year's. Once again, thank you, Greg. This was so powerful.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank
See
you,
ya.
Matt.
Just do it.